Good morning. I'm Dr. Jean Fourie, and this morning we are talking about spelling. Now, spelling is one of those areas that is quite difficult to teach if a child has a learning problem, if there are any difficulties with their oral language, and any difficulties with their ability to write. And it requires quite serious cognitive functioning. We need to have all our senses, the auditory, we need to be able to hear sounds, and we need to be able to see the sounds, to see the letters on the page. And so it really is a complex psychological process that takes place. We also have this complexity of the modern technology that we have. Every child and person has a cell phone, and we are using shortened versions of spelling of words. We are using phonetics and abbreviations and icons in our communication online with our friends. And so it makes the problem of spelling conventionally more difficult for teachers in the classroom. And so you can see this little girl says, my teacher is unqualified to teach spelling. She spells you, which the little girl would be writing on her cell phone. She spells you, Y-O-U, and she spells BRB as return, and she spells BNF as goodbye. So children are picking up all these abbreviated spellings very, very quickly and very early on. And we want to teach what is called conventional spelling. So we want to teach the conventions of how words are spelt in the dictionary across that particular spelling, with those spelling conventions that have been decided upon in that language. So there are numerous approaches to spelling, and these approaches relate to the senses and the way that we teach the spelling. The general overarching view is that we need to teach using as many senses as possible. So you would teach using the hearing auditory sense. You would teach using the visual sense, so to see things, and you would teach using the motor sense, kinesthetic, how what movement aspects can be brought into the teaching of spelling. And then the other big area is looking at the cognitive, how we think about words, and I'll get to that one later. So if you can just think that when you are teaching spelling, there are these four main areas that we need to incorporate into any remedial sessions. So the one that we think about the most is phonics, and this has got to do with the sounds of the letters. And we spend a lot of time breaking words up into syllables, rhyming, recognizing the patterns in the words. For instance, looking at words that in word families, words that are very similar, have similar sounds at the ends or the beginnings of them, and how do we pronounce these words? How do we say them? So for instance, if we look at the word Wednesday, we can break it up into Wednesday. And that's a difficult word often to spell. And February, people often mispronounce that. So in order to be able to spell it correctly, you need to be able to hear the parts of the word. So February, one can do this analysis of the word where you are breaking the word into its sounds. And then doing lots of chanting and using different little rhymes. So how do you spell the word right? Mr. R, Mr. I, Mr. GHT. There are lots of little rhymes that people can use to assist with spelling. And we need this because English in particular is a language that has complex words where the words and the sounds and the letters on the page do not correspond perfectly. So this is called correspondence. And when you have a language that has one-to-one correspondence, it means that the letters that you see on the page have an exact phonics, phoneme sound. So there are languages such as Russian. If you can read Russian and you've learned the phonics alphabet for Russian, you will be able to do any of the reading. Whereas for English, when I'm going to show you some more complex words, for English, there is sometimes one-to-one correspondence. If you think about mat, m, a, t, the sounds and the letters correspond, but there are words that are irregular words, and that one-to-one correspondence does not work. So that's why we need to have all these different approaches. So the first one is looking at auditory, and we need to be able to have our oral language in place, our pronunciation of words, and being able to segment the words. Segmentation is the process where you break words down into their parts, into their sounds, into their syllables, and into their parts. Then the next major focus is visual, where we are assisting children with as many different strategies as possible to look at the words, to see what the words look like written on the page. And here we can keep a little personal dictionary where they write down the words that they're having difficulty with, highlighting difficult sections in the word. If you think of all those words that end in GHT, height, for instance, the ending of the words are irregular, so we want to highlight those. We can look for smaller words within words, hearing, hear, and ing, and so this is also the syllabification, but we're doing this visually, so looking to see looking on the page at the words. And there are lots of different techniques that assist with this, looking at the word, covering the word, then writing it down and trying to visualize the word in your visual memory. And so the ability to be able to recall what that word looked like, and the motor control, the motor output, being able to then write the word out on the page. And it's a useful thing for children to have a little scratch patch next to them. It can be a piece of paper that you write the word down, and our visual memory of the word, often when you don't know how to spell a word, you'll kind of write it down, and you'll look at it and you'll go, well, it kind of looks wrong. I know it's wrong, but I can't remember exactly how to spell it. But you already have some memory of the correct spelling. And so it does help to have a little, small little whiteboard or a small little chalkboard next to the child so that they can write down the word as they go and see which one is the correct spelling of it. So any games that we are asking children to look, to see, to notice the words around them, look at as you're driving along, there are billboards with words on them and adverts everywhere, to assist parents to look at environmental print. That also helps us to assist with spelling. But be careful of environmental print. Sometimes people doing the adverts will purposefully misspell words, and then that also can be a problem for children who have any kind of learning problem. We really want the correct spelling to be reinforced as much as possible. And difficult words like friend and there, there are different kinds of theirs. To be to write those out as many times, use them in sentences, use them in the correct places for the meaning to be correct. Okay, so there's auditory, where we're listening to things. Then there's the visual, where we are seeing as much as we can. And then there's kinesthetic, and this relates to movement. So any creative ideas that you can think of where learners are actually physically using their hands and their bodies, if possible, when they're little, to do things with the letters. We know that when your hand is moving and writing, the actual process of handwriting, we know that biofeedback from the fingers creates pathways in the brain, and those pathways are get stronger and get more reinforced when there is lots of practice of the physical movement of actually writing. So to get children to write with different colors and kokies and glitter pens and stuff, and lots and lots of different writing activities. Then you can also use some of the examples that I've given here. You take a Ziploc bag and put a little bit of paint in it, and then you trace the letters on the plastic, and the paint moves as you trace the letters. Or you can have a small little tray and you put some of that, put some jelly powder in it, or put some sand in, and trace and write words in there so that the feedback is being experienced. Using different paper textures to have letters, writing letters on bubble plastic, for instance, and then popping them as you spell them. The close technique, spelled C-L-O-Z-E, close technique, is where you have a part, one little either letter or a section of a word that is left out, and the child needs to read the word. Usually one would do this in some kind of context. It can be in a sentence, or it can be the spelling words that you've already practiced for that week, so that they're not totally unfamiliar with the word. So if you look at the example I've given there, it's the word street, and the ability to look at the whole word and to fill in the missing parts. This is a Gestalt technique, and it's relying on our ability, our underlying perceptual ability to close, C-L-O-Z-E, to close things into their holes. And that is our underlying perceptual foundation that we are using there. Then to see where words are misspelt, use the word in your own writing, getting children to write sentences with those words, using your the big chalk that you get called sidewalk chalk. It's very, very big chalk crayons, or hopscotch outside, having something on the floor where you need to jump and jump to the correct letters, any kind of getting the whole body to move. You can also have Play-Doh and magnetic letters, and walking the words, writing the words in the air, using string to make words. There's all sorts of different activities that you can do which are using the whole body in the practice of spelling. So anything that is combining auditory and visual and kinesthetic movement is going to reinforce the correct spelling of the word much quicker and easier. Then we get to strategies related to mnemonics, and these are having little memory aids which assist us with remembering these words that are always tricky words, such as because. And so Betty eats cake and Uncle sells eggs. That's a little mnemonic that you can teach children how to remember to spell the word because. And the word necessary, one never knows if it's got one or two C's and S's, and the little mnemonic is to think about necessary. What you need on a shirt is one collar, and if you're going to dress, you have two socks. So one K for collar and two S for socks. And then another little rhyme that's often taught is that if you're going to spell, for instance, a word that has an I and an E in it, it's always I before the E, except if it's after a C. So we teach those little rhymes. And we can make up little nonsense stories depending on the word that we want to teach. For instance, the example I've given here is hospital and hospit. Think of a pit, somebody falling into a pit, and then they have to be brought to the hospital. Or the word accommodation, it's got two C's and two M's. So if you're going on holiday with twins, you need two cots and two M's for two mattresses because you've got twins. Or the word customer, how do you spell it with an E or an O, customer, because it's a neutral vowel, the phonics sound. And one can think about Tom, who works at customer services, so it's going to be spelled with a T-O-M. And the word rhythm, to remember how to spell that word because it's got funny spelling, is rhythm helps your two hips move. So R-H-Y-T-H-M. So these are little mnemonics, and we can teach children these little strategies, and there are lots of those. So any of these strategies relate to cognitive, the broad overarching cognitive memory strategies. We're using our memory in order to remember how to spell the particular words. Okay. It's just a little cartoon. And more cognitive strategies also relate to what's called metalinguistics. And this is meta means over and above, and linguistics obviously relates to the language, the words of the language. So to try and, as you're going along with teaching anything to do with language, to learn about the language itself. So we learn about spelling rules, we learn about the origins of words, where the words come from, and the the different ways that words are put together. So anything that where we are cognitively overtly teaching about the language and how it is spelt is metalinguistic strategies. So for instance, the first example I've given here is the letter C, a capital K, can have different sounds, and to teach that if you see a K in the word cell, it sounds like a S, but if you see a K in the word cat, it's a K. So the complexity of English, but here you can see a clear example where there is not one-to-one correspondence of the letter and the sound. And so we need to be sometimes thinking very carefully about that. The origins of words, for instance, the word, the Greek word ped means foot. So if you see that little root in any word, such as pedal on a bicycle pedal, or pedicure, where you are having your feet nails done, pedestrian, person walking on their feet. These origins of teaching the where the word comes from can assist with meaning and with spelling and complicated, challenging words. Neurologist, neuro got to do with neurons. Psychologists, the psy, P-S-Y-C-H, most people have difficulty with that one, comes from also a Greek word, psy, got to do with the mind. Multitude, multiple things, and chiropractic got to do with the back. So the roots of words can also, an understanding that words come from very ancient places, Greek and Latin words. So anything where we are teaching rules of language, so for where we're looking at the different spellings of words, the different choices of spelling that you can make, any of these things are the cognitive approaches to teaching spelling. So you're overtly teaching memory and understanding of the words. Whereas the initial ones of hearing the sounds, breaking at the sound, the word into its sounds, that's auditory, and looking at the word, how the word is spelt, the kinesthetic ones, jumping around, moving, doing any tactile things with understanding the words. Those are the kinesthetic movement, tactile approaches. And then there are all the metacognitive, cognitive approaches. So remember that when we are writing out words and saying the sounds out loud, that you should be looking at the sounds of the letters. So not the letter names. So for instance, the word cat, k-a-t, the a in there is an a. It's the sound. It's not the name of the letter, which is an a. So it is, so you shouldn't be spelling C-A-T, because that doesn't make, that makes Kate, not cat. And so the thing is to try and teach the sound that the letter makes, not its name when you are doing those sound-based approaches. So the a sound, I'm just going to give you as an example of some of the complexity around English. There are different sounds for the a sound, and it can be an A as well. So it can make its name sound, but then the spelling changes a little bit. So if we have a look on the slide at list A, at list 1, the sounds here are A as in rain, bait, brain, and these are all sounds that relate to an AI. And here at the beginning or in the middle of a word, these the A sound is in these, and this is a word family where the words are very similar sounding words and also visually the same. Then list 2 also has an A sound in it, but now the spelling is an AY, as in play, away, stay. So this sound and the spelling choice happens at the end of a root word. So that's another word family that can be taught for the A sound. If we look at list 3, this is the sometimes referred to as the magic E, because the A and the E have been separated, and the E is now at the end of the word, and it turns the short vowel, the A, which is a short vowel, into its long vowel A sound. So when you see the E on the end, it has an impact on the short vowel, and it becomes an A. Plane, gate, trade, game. So that's another list of A sounds to be taught. And then there are the sounds in list number 4. Baby, cradle, station, stanger, and this has got to do, they're not the short vowel. So if it was the short A, it would be babby, cradle, station. It's the long vowel in this case, so it is baby, cradle, station, stanger. And then the most complex irregular words relating to the A sound are, for instance, words such as eight, spelled with an E-I-G-H-T. So you can see that this is really got nothing to do with a long A, but in English it is an A sound. And way and great. So these are where you really have to, these irregular words are the ones that need lots of the auditory, but lots and lots of visual. You need to look at these words a lot and write them out and do the kinesthetic activities with them, and lots of different ways, because the irregular spelling words are the ones that catch us out all the time. So we need to build very strong visual memories and motor memories of these words. So you need to have written them in numerous different ways, many different times, for those visual and motor pathways to be established. Okay, so I just want to go through a couple of things and be as creative as you possibly can be when teaching any spelling lists or spelling words, use crossword puzzles, label pictures, fill in missing letters using your scratch patch, and analyzing children's creative writing pieces to see where the words are that they are having difficulty with, and then focusing on overt teaching of those different words. I want to draw your attention to the many different spelling programs that are out available, and they all have advantages and disadvantages, and certain people just love certain of them. It's useful to have, if you're working within a school setting, to use the same program that the school is using, because then you don't have confusion with the learner. And a lot of these Letterland, Thras, Phonographics, Phonics in a Box, and I'm sure you can think of other programs, they all are having some system in place where they're trying to have some way to assist teachers to teach the conventional spelling. And they all use visuals, they use auditory sounds, they have mnemonics, they have ways of breaking words up, they have little stories associated with them, and some of them are more complex. Like Thras is a very comprehensive system, quite complex. It covers like everything with regards to spelling and English. So it's a complex system to put in place. And you need to be flexible as a remedial teacher, so that you try and use or be as consistent with the program that the learner is using in their school setting. So I also want to speak about phonetic spelling. We know that children's development of spelling passes through different stages, and you don't just wake up at school and become a perfect conventional speller. So conventional spelling is the highest stage, but we start off with very simple, just writing consonants. Sometimes one letter represents a word. Then we'll learn the basic pattern of consonant, vowel, consonant, and the learner will start to invent spellings. So we also speak about this as spelling phonetically. So if you know you've learned for fish, and wherever you hear the sound f, you put it in, even if it's for phone or elephant. And so that is spelling what you the conventional one, spelling with one-to-one correspondence, really. So as a remedial teacher, please understand and acknowledge that children are going through these stages, and you will not become a proficient speller who is spelling the conventional spelling way for a while. It is a process, and we have to overtly learn how to spell correctly. So be careful that you don't just put red marks on children's incorrect spelling. Acknowledge the effort that they put into to learn the spelling, understand it is a complex process, and that there are ways that we can assist people to become much better at this thing of spelling these irregular words easily. So there are different strategies to do that. And we need to be very creative when we are teaching spelling. Here's just a little example that I found. You can be on a desert or a desert island, and they have very different meanings, whether you spell the word with one S or two S's. More creative ways, using the boards where you can have a set of letters and try to make as many words as you can with a particular set of letters. Cutting out words in the correct patterns, hunting for words in magazines, using a spelling pattern book with pictures and words in it, matching root words and prefixes and suffixes. There are lots of different ways that teachers use to assist learners with spelling. Here's an example of a spelling stair, where you start off with spelling the whole word, and then you have a piece of paper that covers it as you go down, and so you're taking away more of the letters until the child is able to spell the whole word without seeing any parts of that word, without seeing any of the single letters. Unscrabbling words, give them a set of letters such as P, C, H, I, and they need to make the word chip from that. Highlighting spelling words in newspapers, looking in a magazine or a newspaper for spelling words that are tricky, that you are having difficulty with, finding new words in texts, filling in the definitions of words, and doing crosswords and word searches. And there are lots and lots of different websites that can assist you with all of these things. So being very creative. Here's an example of a little made-up story, a story that was made up, and the child can then look for the words that they need to learn that week, highlighting the words, taking your spelling words and putting them in alphabetical order. This is also learning of the alphabetic principle. So the alphabetic principle is the principle that we have the alphabet, and there is a particular sequence that the letters are taught in. And a useful strategy here is also to take a whole set of alphabet letters and make children actually put them in order from A to Z. And that's a really useful thing to do. We can identify which part of speech that spelling word comes from. We can write our spelling words in different tenses, and we can put them into word families. So word families are where the words have similar endings or similar middle sounds. And we can do spelling practices where you, for instance, write out the word, then copy it, then you cover all the word with another piece of paper, and then write it out again. Then you take off the piece of paper and check if you've spelt the word correctly. So all sorts of ways to practice spelling words. And then we can also play and manipulate with sounds, and we can have different sound endings, such as in this example here. And the starting is the same, an F, and we can write out the spelling words with the different endings that are given in the top column. So anything where we are looking at the shape of the word, adding pictures to it, adding color, size, writing the words in the air, collecting spelling words in some kind of a game, playing spelling snap or bingo with words, looking at words in books and texts, using different kinds of textures, flashcards. So all of these are activities various different activities that teachers can use, and all of them are relating to those overarching things of the sound, the visuals, what it looks like, and doing some movement activities and thinking about the words thinking about the words cognitively. There are lots of different games, going fishing for sounds, going fishing games, stacking up spelling words in little piles, playing sound or spelling Jenga, bingo, looking for beginning, middle, ending sounds, throwing sounds and words through a hoop, jumping and clapping sound combinations, such as this activity. I've given an example here: pump, plump, slump, lump, clump, clamp, clam, lamb. So putting complex sentences, complex words like that into a little rhyme that we need to speak about. Okay, I've mentioned whisper phones. I'm not sure if everyone knows what a whisper phone is, but this is a little device, and I'll put up a picture on Blackboard as well. A whisper phone is just a little piece of like a plastic connection that you speak into, and it amplifies your own sound into your own ear. So it goes from your mouth to your ear, and the child holds it. You can make your own whisper phones from pieces of plumbing, those white plumbing pipes, and you get two of the elbow joints of the plumbing pipes and join them together, so that when the child is reading or doing any work where they have to speak, the sound gets amplified in their own ears, and this is a really, really good way to ensure that that they listen carefully to their pronunciation and to the parts of the word. And obviously playing lots of different games in class with these sounds. Okay, I want to move on and just stop there so that we've got a little bit of time. So remember that English has all these words that are irregular. For instance, no, not, ni, knob. And the little boy in this cartoon says, why do I have to keep writing these K's when they don't make any noise anyway? And it's all part of the irregular words, because they have different meanings when you write. An N-O-W is a now, but a no, it is a kind of it sounds like a silent K, but it's got a bit of a glottal. It should have a bit of a glottal stop. I'm sure in Old English it was pronounced differently, and the way that you spell the word has a direct correlation with the meaning that you want to convey. And the next little cartoon says, the guy's writing a little message to the lady on his computer, and he's written, I think you're petty. So he forgot to put the R in. So he wants to say to her, he thinks she's pretty, but she's going to get the message of, I think you're petty, and she's not going to get the correct message. So we have to learn to spell correctly, because it is the meaning that is behind the words that we really need to convey. So being able to spell correctly is really crucial, and we do want a population that is more literate than currently, and so spelling is a really important thing. So please work on spelling. I'm going to stop the recording there.